Everybody looks scared.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to IGN Game Scoop. I'm your host, Damon Hatfield. Joining me this week is Justin Davis,
Scoop.
Marty Sleva, Sam Claiborne.
Scoops.
We've got a great show for you this week. So much to talk about. Very, very busy week. We got to talk about Dishonored 2. We got to talk about Super Mario Run. But first,
We're going to talk about this table, right?
Yeah.
No, the table.
The obelisk.
It is the table. It is that of which we do not speak.
Can I just, since I can't see it, is everybody's legs crossed the same way as usual?
No, my legs aren't crossed.
I'm
It's
just
Say
uncrossable.
yes. Just
Justin
say
and I are the
yes.
same.
I got a
can't
little
see it.
ankle cross going.
Really? Okay.
Sam, you're already getting me off topic here. The first thing we need to talk about today is Watch Dogs 2. Out this week, the first game was released in 2013 and was a bit of a debacle because people felt that it was not the game that they were expecting when it finally came out. So the question is, did they learn from that experience? Were they able to deliver the game people wanted this time around?
So,
Sort of.
I mean, one of the like the big sticking points with Watch Dogs 1 was that it was revealed so many years before it actually came out, and it obviously looked very different and looked better than it did when it actually released. And so right off the bat here, like this was just revealed 5 months ago, right before E3. And so you didn't have that multi-year cycle where we're seeing it at 3 E3s in a row. Like we got this reveal at the beginning of June, and in the beginning of November, the game's out.
Watch Dogs 1 had that infamous downgrade, you know, from the very first trailer to what the finished product.
Visual, yeah. It didn't end up looking visually like it did in its trailers.
Yeah.
So back to the table.
So so I think right from there, I think they did learn from some of the mistakes. Also in terms of tone, like the first Watch Dogs was a wet blanket, and Aiden Pierce was just an angry man who wasn't very entertaining to control. Whereas Marcus is like, this game definitely does have a bright, vibrant sense of humor.
It's a
in terms of
bright,
its character and
vibrant
world.
game about murder.
Yeah, totally. I'm not murdering people. I'm just having
It's
my robots
hard
murder
not
them.
to sometimes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just slam into people in a car.
Yeah.
Or dogs. It's awful.
Never do that to the dogs. You can pet the dogs.
But it
Pet
launched
dogs
this
too.
week without its seamless multiplayer functionality.
Right, so that's what I was getting at, where like the game, the Ubisoft absolutely learned from their mistakes in terms of how it was rolled out by not setting expectations so high and then having to dial them back. But it seems like they found, we still don't know, as we're recording this, we don't know the full story there, but obviously something went wrong. The game launched and its multiplayer is offline now.
Well,
still,
yeah, I mean,
sort of. The seamless drop in, drop out is offline.
Yeah, certain parts of it, like you can play co-op with
Like
friends.
cooperatively.
Yeah.
You can invite people,
Yeah.
but the whole promise of like you're just going to be hanging out and then someone's going to show up in your world is none of that's functional at the moment.
Yeah, which is interesting because when we did an IGN first a couple months ago, and when we played it at Ubisoft Montreal, that was working perfectly. Like that was working great. And granted, it was probably we were probably literally connected, hardwired to the other consoles and everything. But it's also like I find it kind of weird that a big to-do is being made about this, because maybe this is a big deal, and maybe a month from now it's still going to be bad. But I get the feeling that by the weekend this will be fixed.
I hope so.
It's sort of almost a non-issue to me.
No, it's
personally.
an issue to us because we're trying to review the game.
Yeah.
I don't think it's an issue widely.
Yeah.
I think the nudity is a bigger issue widely.
Yeah, I want to talk about that in a
Funny
second
issue.
too. But yeah, this issue is holding up our review. A lot of other sites just decided to go ahead and put up their review, though. There's dozens and dozens
You have to
of
weigh
reviews
whether the
already up there.
multiplayer is worth a huge amount of fun in this game. Like, is this just a single player game you can play on your own? It seems like it. Yeah. But go ahead.
Sorry, it puts you in an interesting spot as a critic, because how long do we wait? Like, we don't want to put a final score on it and then the next day have, the multiplayer be fixed. But, what if it's next week? What if it's 2 weeks? Like, at some point you have to say, look, this is the final score this game's going to get. And I actually like IGN's policy around this. And I'm not a reviews editor, so, Dan Stapleton would have to explain the nuance there. But the provisional score, like if we had to give this game a score today, you can read that review and check that score. But it gives us the opportunity to sort of recognize that games are a service and they're evolving and changing over time.
It's not just like sort of a tacked on separate multiplayer mode like some of the Assassin's Creed game had. It's like this is
Uncharted.
This is connected with the single player in a really cool way, in that it's like sort of at GTA, if you get 6 stars, there's like a Comanche helicopter that comes after you. The way the multiplayer should work in this game is if you max out your wanted system, the final thing is that it draws in a human player whose goal is to kill you, and your goal is to kill them. And if they kill you, they get a bunch of experience in their single player game. And if you kill them, you get a bunch of experience in yours, which is super cool. I think that's really cool if it actually works. But
and then the slightly insider version of this that GameScoop fans might be interested in is that we considered Grand Theft Auto 5 a single player game. and for the first time ever, they had Grand Theft Auto Online, and that was like a case in which we had to learn, like, how are we going to review these games that we think of as single player games when there's a likely chance that multiplayer might be really important. For that game, it turned out to be extremely important, but we thought it was a single player game.
I mean, GTA Online morphed into and evolved into a completely different beast than it seemed like it was going to be at launch, and maybe even Rockstar intended for it to be. GTA 4 did have an online mode, but it wasn't to the degree that 5 did.
Absolutely. Have you guys got a chance to play any Watch Dogs 2 or a lot of it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You like it?
I've played a lot of stuff in the game, but I just started my own game because I've been playing on other people's saves and I've played preview. For me, like, San Francisco as a setting is so the only thing I care about in the game. And I know it's hard to relate to as people that don't live here, but it's not just that. It's also that I think San Francisco, like, you know, when cities are a character in a movie or a book or a game, I think that's really neat. We're in an interesting time in San Francisco right now. But I also think San Francisco is a wonderful city. I love it. Like, it's my favorite city. That's why I moved here. It was to live in San Francisco. I think it's so cool to be seeing what they did with that in the game. It's amazing.
The city is so visually and tonally diverse that it like makes sense for a place in a game. Like, in the same way in classic platformers, you had the fire level and the ice level and the wind level. Like, in this, like, the Castro feels different than the Embarcadero.
It's all the wind level.
It's all the it's
definitely better in Chicago. And then I also there's a weird thing that happened this year because I also feel like Pokemon Go, because I live in San Francisco, was set in San Francisco.
Wow.
I spent a lot of time exploring San Francisco in Pokemon Go, like going to places I'd never seen before.
That's really interesting.
And I feel like 2 experiences this year have been just exploring San Francisco in a really interesting way.
Yeah. It's a very, and I do like.
That's why Pokemon Go will be my game of the year.
Wow. You heard it.
No, I just say that. It's just a troll for Damon.
Yeah.
I like San Francisco. I like the Bay Area. I live here, but there's no denying that it's a very, very easy area to like lampoon and make fun of, and it's just a ripe area for, you know, you can make fun of and poke at and sort of explore different things in the city versus in Silicon Valley versus across the bay in Oakland and in Marin. You get a very, very different vibe and a lot of different you know, aspects of our culture to just really sort of pick apart in like and parody in pretty good ways.
Yeah, I think the game handles parody well. Some of the jokes fall flat, but I like that at least it's that tone instead of the my niece died. I don't know if his niece or nephew, but he just kept complaining about that the whole game. Like, don't do that.
Well, I mean, it's just not like a fun thing to play.
Something I want. Like, I watch a Lifetime original movie about it. I don't want to play
exactly.
it.
Have you played enough to compare like Mafia 3 in this in terms? Because I heard so much good stuff about story and character development.
Yeah,
in Mafia 3.
I think. So far, I'm liking the story in Mafia 3 better than Watch Dogs 2. That being said, I think mechanically, Watch Dogs 2 is superior in nearly every way. And I really like the upgrade system, and it really is like catering to my playstyle. Like, whatever your playstyle is, I'm going almost non-lethal, and most encounters, I don't even enter the area that the encounter takes place in, and I just use my drones, and I've upgraded my drones a ton. I like all the side quests.
That's really cool.
I like taking selfies and getting points for them. I like petting dogs and getting followers. It's also really weird because you like you'll take a selfie in front of like Coit Tower and get like 30,000 followers. I'm like, is that how easy it is to get social media followers?
I don't think it quite works like that. So even though
it's a cool tower.
Yeah.
It is a very cool tower. Even though public opinion on the first game soured, the original Watch Dogs did get good reviews, and I think it even got an 8 from IGN. Yeah. And even though we're still waiting to put up our final review for the sequel is getting good review. Like, even a little bit, the reviews are a little bit better for this game than the first one. So
I'm having a ton of fun with it.
Yeah, I'm totally looking forward to playing it. But the other interesting news about this game this week is the weird nudity.
Yeah.
That was apparently like maybe mistakenly included in the game. Ubisoft.
There's 2 flavors of nudity in this game.
That's true. Yeah. So you can describe.
Chocolate and vanilla.
So there's some nudity that's obviously deliberate. You can go to certain areas in the game or certain city blocks, and there's naked people hula hooping, and that's
San Francisco, actually.
Yeah, and that's San Francisco. But then
they're usually not having that much fun.
No, they're not. But then there's also
like new beaches. Yeah. Famous new beaches in San Francisco.
Yeah. Fun fact: my wife and I went to one not knowing it was a nude beach.
Yeah. Well.
That's a date tip.
We figured it out.
Any beach can be a nude beach.
Yeah. Well, we figured it out very, very fast.
Yeah.
But the picture that's been going around and the one that's making news, it's not super clear that was deliberate nudity in the same way. Because I don't know how we can.
There's a character where they fully modeled vagina in the
Yeah.
game, and if someone took a picture of the character died, they blew up a street, the character's laying on the ground, and it's like an upskirt shot.
Yeah, and so they shared it online, and then they were suspended. They got their account suspended by Sony.
And it's kind of like, this is in the game. I didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
So there's all sorts of interesting questions. Like, was this included intentionally by Ubisoft? Like you said, is this just the character model clipping through the clothing?
There's some debate about, why is that body part showing through the woman's underwear? Like, that seems really strange, but that part may have actually been a bug. It's a little weird.
Yeah.
And we also, there's like the way that games are made, oftentimes is that you'll buy models. Like, I'll buy a model for these 5 men and these 5 women, and then, we'll tweak them and change them.
Especially for non-important NPCs.
Yeah. And then those are the people that populate our game world. And it's possible that those are just off-the-shelf models that were anatomically correct, and it would have been more work to actually not have them have genitalia. And it's not as cut and dry as you kind of maybe think it is.
I like to think that there was like a rogue artist in Montreal who like would wait until like 7 or 8 at night.
Yeah.
And every time, as soon as people would go
Just
home, he'd open up
giggling
Maya,
and drawing
zoom
his
in,
pen.
and be like, "Oh, my masterpiece."
To me, there's a disconnect somewhere. Either some developer or designer did include this nudity in the game, and then not everyone at Ubisoft was aware of it, or it wasn't included. It was like a mistake, but it's in there, and you're able to stream that and share that with the world. But then Sony, that's not okay with Sony.
Yeah,
like there's a disconnect somewhere.
I mean, maybe this was like maybe early on in the design there was a mission that did have full nudity in it, like in the Ballad of Gay Tony had like a full penis in it.
Yeah.
So maybe they were going something like, hey, in this mission we're going to push the boundary and do this, and then eventually they're like, well, let's just scrap it. But at some point they forgot to remove
Like
the
Sony,
bits.
I know Sony has their like conduct, for their online conduct, whatever. But more and more games have nudity in them. So like,
Well, the game is rated M, and it's rated M not just for violence, but nudity is one of the descriptors for the content of the game.
So when you buy a game, are you not able to just stream it? Like, I know developers can sometimes prevent you from streaming like story sections.
Yeah,
for
certain
spoilers.
parts of Phantom Pain you couldn't stream. Yeah.
I don't know.
And music, licensed music.
I don't
sometimes
understand.
won't
It's a
stream.
gray area, right? It's like, I bought this game, I paid $60 for it. Now I can't stream it. I got suspended for just streaming the game that I bought.
Well, the scary thing is that, like, whatever the case of PlayStation's rules, that has a chilling effect on what you include in your game if you don't want to have to deal with that.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like, even like, this was a pretty immature nudity situation, but even if as games mature, like, I'm worried that if Sony's gonna like not let people share nudity, even if it's gratuitous and weird in this situation.
It almost seems
what
like
if it's just,
even if it was a mistake
nudity?
and that nudity wasn't meant to be in, it seems like a mistake on Sony's part to not let people just share the game.
I mean,
that they bought.
I feel like this might just be a one-off scenario of like, well, this is a weird event, and that we're gonna. I don't know if we're ever gonna figure out what exactly went down here, but I feel like maybe this will be the thing that Sony learns from. Like, well, if this happens again, let's.
They need to
act this
update their
way.
policies.
Yeah.
Well, and
if
it's
they
also,
have a game about creating something and you create a bunch of
Yeah,
stuff
like if
in
Dreams
it,
is coming out, you could probably do some weird vagina stuff in
Yeah.
Dreams.
I think that will have to be addressed.
Yeah.
we there's also the sort of the tired criticism of American media where, hey, sure, share a clip of you shooting a cop in the face, but God forbid,
yeah, exactly,
Or in the same clip, it was like,
Yeah.
I happened to blow up a bunch of women in this alley, and
It's like
that
fine.
part we're fine with, but the part that follows, no, that's not okay.
That's a classic problem with
maybe
modern American society.
there might need to be ratings for the shared content from that game also.
that's true.
Like that'd be an easy way to
I think
solve
one of the
problem.
things, though, like Justin was saying, is that those pictures sort of get randomly populated into the game's like item page
That's
on
also-
PSN.
that's
So a kid
also
can just be
a problem that I
on
understand.
on the PlayStation Store, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, there it is.
Yeah,
There's
that's
that
not
man.
good. You don't want that.
We love these fan theories here on GameScoop. We have a fan theory about Watch Dogs from Spain. This is Neil from Spain. He emailed us at the email address gamescoop@ign.com, just like you can. And he says, been watching you for well over 2 years. Keep it up. On to the topic of discussion. The other day, a friend and I were talking about Watch Dogs 2 and if it would have a downgrade like the first games. We checked a few internet review sites. Turns out there wasn't anything major downgraded. The point is, I told my friend this theory. The first game's downgrade was something Microsoft and Sony told Ubisoft to do. The game looked too good for the games that were coming out at that time. And I simply think Microsoft and Sony just didn't want a third-party game to look better than a first-party game.
Conspiracy.
I think the original game from the trailers could have been running on our systems because a game like Uncharted 4 can run well and looks better than the Watch Dogs trailers. The other reason Sony and Microsoft could have told Ubisoft to do this could have been to see some graphical evolution throughout the console generation. Ubisoft could have simply waited and pushed the game for a few years, but they were risking too much money with the IP, so they decided to release the game in 2014 with the eventual downgrade
I like it.
we saw in the final game, and also pleasing gamers, blah, blah, blah. So, in his theory...
A collusion for crappiness.
Yep.
I like it.
Oh man,
I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't believe that at all.
There's a lot to unpack
I believe
here.
what we saw was a vertical slice, and the game did look that good. But all
explain
that
what a
was,
vertical slice is.
A vertical slice is some of the things you see at E3. A game is running, and it does look that good, but what it is it is a very small chunk of the world. The only thing being populated is this one single mission with these single set of mechanics, and nothing else in the entire video game exists in this build of the game. So everything on the hardware is working towards this one small slice, and you're able to make it look phenomenal. And yes, that is a real thing, but once you expand the game and you're like, well, all right, we have the entire city of Chicago, and we have these cutscenes, and we have 100 times the amount of NPCs and different mechanics. It's like, well, the processing power has to go to those places.
Well, there's also, in some occasions, I don't feel like this happens as often anymore, but 5 years ago, it was not uncommon for, the whole gameplay demo to be faked, and it would be rendered, and it would say, look, this is our goal. This is our target render for what we want Madden to look like or what we want Killzone to look like, but this is not actual gameplay footage, and, they're just confident, or they're relatively confident that they're going to be able to get to that level, and then sometimes they don't, or they can't.
Yeah, I think Ubisoft as a whole, like, they've sort of... been accused of this a couple times with a handful of games. I mean, we all played Rainbow Six Siege and gave our game a show at E3, and then a year
Destruction was fairly sick.
A year later, it was pulled back a little bit and didn't look quite as good. Same thing with Watch Dogs, and I feel like I like to think that they're learning from that and realizing that that initial wow factor isn't worth the backlash you get afterwards.
That's it.
And what we saw running during the reveal of Watch Dogs 2 is how the game looks. The game looks really good.
That's true.
Yeah.
But the trailers still looked much better than the game. Which is, but maybe the PC version will look really good.
So I guess we didn't directly answer the conspiracy theory. I mean, no, there's a variety of reasons why I don't think that that's the case. Chief among them, Microsoft and Sony have no say over what their third parties do.
Well, they could probably have some say, but I don't
But
think
they don't have a
think
vested interest in
this-
saying make your game look worse than it has potential to look.
in this scenario, Microsoft and Sony they meet together and make decisions together about what
Phil Spencer and
about
Shuhei.
what to tell. So Phil Spencer and Shuhei have an office, and they call Eve
Guillemot
into their office, like, Eve, have a seat. Would you like a cigar? Listen, Shuhei and I, we love what you're doing with Watch Dogs. Game looks great. Looks really good, right, Shuhei? Yeah.
Too great.
A little too great. What do we say we dial it back a little bit? No need to overachieve anything, right?
I like the idea that Reggie's tapping at the window, like, can I come in, guys?
So where should we lock the frame rate? I'd say a solid 28.
Yeah.
Just below 30.
Just have it fluctuate a little.
Yeah, it's an interesting theory, Neil from Spain.
The comparison to Uncharted 4 is the difference between a linear game and an open world game. Like when you can direct, Nathan Drake's going to start in the exact same spot and the scripted event's going to unfold the exact same way, that the trade-off from the loss of sort of player controller freedom is that you can make the game look that much more gorgeous.
Also, it's the difference between a game that came out in May of 2014 and a game that came out in May of 2016.
Yeah. True. All right, moving on. Another game that came out in the past week is Dishonored 2, and this is the game I've been playing instead of playing Watch Dogs this week. Anyone else playing Dishonored 2?
No, but I like Dishonored.
I like the first game a lot too. Marty likes the first game a lot too.
Love the first game. I'm very excited for this one, but I need to get a couple things off my plate beforehand.
I thought you were going to say, I got to get something off my chest.
I thought that too. I'm like,
Is the stealth as good as Metal Gear level, or is it different?
Well, it's first person, so it's a little bit different. It is not as good as Metal Gear Solid 5, which is my favorite game last year. One of my favorite games in recent memory.
Same.
Dishonored 2 is very good. I'm enjoying it a lot, in spite of the fact that it runs terribly on my PlayStation 4.
wow, that's a bummer.
Crashes. I've had multiple crashes, frame rate stutters. It chugs just bring up the pause menu. It's like when you hit start, the game freezes and then there's the pause screen. It's not an instantaneous thing. So I'm just playing on PS4, but I'm still the gameplay is solid, and I love the world building that they do in that game. It's just such a cool setting.
Which character did you choose?
I'm playing as Emily.
Yeah, that seems like, I'm a little sick of playing as Corvo probably, so that's cool that there's another option.
Yeah, I feel
for the
like
character
anyone who
powers.
played a ton of the first game probably wants to be like, well, I know what Dishonored is like as Corvo, so what's it like with this new suite of powers?
Plus, I think it would be worth it to go back and play through again as Corvo. He has different powers, first of all, so you'll be able to approach things in a different way. And all of like the story dialogue in the game is tailored for Emily when you're playing as her, and they reference your father. So I imagine all that's going to be like flipped if you play as Corvo.
Yeah.
So
Did you play that robot house yet?
that is hard. That mission is really tough. I actually felt like when I got to that mission, I wasn't like I didn't have the tools or the skills I really needed to be able to tackle that mission
Because there's
effectively.
like really hard enemies in it.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Were you able to get
Brendan
through it?
found.
Yeah, I eventually got through it, but it was like a very sloppy playthrough of it.
Brendan found a total cheat through, well, not a cheat, but a really difficult way to get through that with no kill, which is really fascinating. You should talk
Yeah,
about
well, I
that.
saw that our wiki guide for that level was performing very well yesterday. It was very
Dishonored
popular.
2 is commendable for, and this is kind of like I like Deus Ex, but when people say you have so much freedom in Deus Ex, and it's like, well, you can hack or climb through this vent or do a conversation. Like those are your three
shoot them.
ways.
Yeah,
or shoot. Those are your ways through every single scenario.
Yeah.
Whereas Dishonored 2 is true freedom in the sense that they plop you in and you have this whole suite of tools at your disposal, and there's not 3 ways or 5 ways. There are a nearly infinite number of spidering outward different scenarios and ways that you can tackle each sort of scenario.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's
also
just-
interesting that it's not an open world game. It's
Yeah.
like level based, but the levels are really big
Yeah,
and sprawling,
and
and,
dense,
there's lots
yeah.
of secrets to find.
I mean, that's game design you don't get to see much. I mean, if
Yeah.
Metal Gear Solid 5 didn't have an open world, it probably wouldn't be that different because really it's about little, levels that are set between a lot of nothingness. And sometimes there's in between stages, which are really cool. But like each of those bases is kind of like a level in Dishonored. And they took a lot of crafting and careful planning. And I just love how much craft goes into making a big level that you can manipulate in
And
those ways.
I always love the game to where if I start thinking of weird stuff, like I wonder if I could do this, and I can. Like that's just like incredible game design and amazing foresight on the part of the developers to be like, yes, we are going to sort of look at every angle, and if you want to do something and think you can, you probably can.
Well, and just the bravery to give people all these tools and then say, hey, there may be some combination of tools in here that like borderline breaks the game, but we're still going to give the player the power to figure out, how like you can booby trap rats and then control the rats and then send them into another room and like just do something crazy.
We've always heard these stories of like system heavy games of developers after the game comes out. Players find things where like, oh, we had no idea this could happen. Like there's always the story with the first Fallout that I think after the game came out, players realized that you could put you could pull the pin on a grenade and put it in an NPC's pocket, and you could like kill these like super hard bosses by looking at NPC walking patterns, and you could like put a bomb in someone's pocket and let them like walk by the boss and just blow the boss up. And the developer's like, we had no idea this could happen.
Yep.
Yeah.
One concrete example, and it's not nearly that flashy, but just a little thing. Like the game has fall damage. If you fall from a height, it was designed to hurt you, and the
Dishonored?
level, and Dishonored was designed with that in mind. Like the space was designed with that. But you can create a doppelganger of yourself way down below you, and then jump and assassinate that doppelganger and get out of the fall damage.
Yeah.
And so that's
Which I
like
think is
one.
super cool.
Emily has a different variation of that, right?
Of what? The doppelganger? She has a doppelganger ability.
Yeah, I think it's her that can do that. Maybe they both can do that.
Yeah,
I'm
they
not
both
sure.
have a different thing, and the
It's-
Corvo
they
has
have
a way
different
to get out of
names.
fall damage, and it's similar exploit.
Yeah,
it's
some
really
of their
clever.
Some of their powers are similar. That's true. I'm going to Spain on Saturday, so I'm rushing to try and beat the game this week. I have a few days left. We'll
Are
see.
you going to talk about your conspiracies over Watch Dogs 1 in Spain?
You looking up Neil?
Yeah.
I'm gonna go visit Neil in Spain. All right, this week we found out that Super Mario Run, Nintendo's first real mobile game, is coming December 15th for $10.
Yeah.
Which sounds about right to me. Sounds great.
Yeah.
I kind of expected it to be more. They'd set us up. They'd sent some signals. It was similar to before the launch of the PlayStation 3 when Sony's like, you might need to get a second job to afford this console.
Oh no.
To afford this mobile
and
game.
Nintendo's been saying this is going to be, a full game, and we're going to be
premium
charging a
experience,
full
yeah.
premium price for it. So I was kind of expecting maybe something as high as 20. Yeah.
Or 60.
We ran a poll on IGN yesterday,
Yeah.
asking people what they thought of the price, whether they thought they would plan to buy it or not. What were the results of the poll?
It was close to 50-50. A few more people, a few higher percentage people said they didn't like that price. It was too high.
Didn't like the price. All right.
So it was like 53-47 or something.
I think a lot of those people end up buying it anyway.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not like I don't know. I don't like telling people what to do with their money. And
Sure.
$10 to one person is different than $10 to another person. That being said, I'm not a fan of the sort of undervaluing of mobile games, of that everything should be free or 99 cents, because there are mobile games like Sword and Sorcery and Device 6 and 80 Days that I've had as much fun as I've had with any retail game. And so I'd gladly pay a premium price
And
for a
Shigeru
premium
Miyamoto's
product.
working on this game.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, it's not like they got some like B team to do it. Like,
I'm frustrated by a couple of things that I've been hearing in the dialogue around this. People will say in the same breath, or you'll hear the same people say, mobile games are a free-to-play trash pile, and it's just a bunch of garbage trying to squeeze as much money out of people as they can. But then when a $10 game with absolutely no in-app purchases, it's just $10, buy the game, play it forever, then they say that that's too much. And I'm like, but you can't have it both ways.
Yeah.
Like if we want to get back to a place where mobile can be a platform like any other platform with games designed with that controller interface in mind, clever, polished, great game experiences, you have to be willing to. I mean, $10 is still cheap.
Yeah.
You have to be willing to spend that $10.
We were talking about this today in our morning meeting that the release date seems to be such a smart move on Nintendo's part. 2 weeks before Christmas, so the game will be out there. Everyone who's like really interested in the game will buy it right away, and then people are going to be getting iTunes gift cards for Christmas. So a lot of even those people who like don't really want to spend the $10 on it, they're going to have a gift card.
You're going to open up the App Store and you're going to see Mario's face and be like, I want it.
I absolutely consider it gift card bait. I don't think they'll sell. I think they'll sell almost as many copies at $10 as they will as $5 because $1 billion worth of gift cards are going to be opened in stockings at Christmas time, and then it's kind of like you're not spending your money. Like I don't know what you guys do, but when I get an iTunes gift card, I'll spend it on something a little bit different than I would normally because I feel like I'm buying myself a little gift.
Did you guys watch the trailer?
The new
I didn't
trailer,
see the
the
new
kingdom
trailer.
building mode seems kind of lame.
Yeah, I don't know what that's going to be. It looks like placing stuff for no reason, but I don't know.
Yeah.
But I'm worried about just the basic platforming in the game. I like Mario games and I hope it feels right, but it's really hard to tell. And I know Jose's played it, and the stuff he played, he thought felt good.
Yeah.
We wrote about that, but I'm worried about the harder levels. Like I feel like those are going to be hard to tune, especially I'm a little obsessive with like collecting everything. And so
and maybe
I'm just worried about myself.
Did you?
We should also point out that Rayman Jungle Run is this game.
Yeah.
one touch
Can you do
jumping.
wall jumping and stuff in that?
Yeah,
So it is a similar thing.
Dude,
I'll try that out.
Like Rayman, Jungle Run, and was something Fiesta.
Well, Fiesta Run, but Jungle Run's the one that's not littered with in-app purchases.
Yeah, but it's the best 2D platformer on mobile because it's built from the ground up on mobile, and it was so smart how they were like, we'll worry about the movement and the locomotion, you worry about jumping and your abilities, and the levels are designed around that, and the levels are so good.
And it doesn't feel like the thing about Rayman Jungle Run is you don't feel like if you were to look at just your thumb when you're playing that game, all you're doing is tapping your thumb down every second or two.
Yeah.
But it doesn't feel that way because you're wall jumping left and right, and long presses versus short presses, and that simple input sort of dissolves into you just focusing on the game experience.
Yeah,
It's great.
Yeah,
And it's worth pointing out, like I am a big defender of that $10 price point. I want there to be $1 mobile games, 10, 20. I want it to feel like 3DS or Vita. But I will say that Jungle Run is $3. It's $3, and it's an incredibly beautiful, gorgeous.
Did it launch at $3?
Yeah, fun, and it's been on sale for cheaper, and so that is a point of consideration. That
yeah, but I mean, Rayman's not Mario.
That's true.
Like,
That's
honestly,
very true.
On the other side of that, New Super Mario Brothers 2 is $30. You know?
Still, yeah. I'm the only thing I'm curious about
Even
that kingdom
digital.
mode. I think the control inputs could be fine. The only thing it has going against it is I don't like that new Mario aesthetic.
Oh yeah, I agree.
I really don't like
it
that
is
aesthetic.
that
This
new,
one?
new Super Mario.
No, just the 3D character on a the
Yeah,
3D
the look
sort
of the
model.
new
and
Super
it-
Mario
the new
Brothers.
Super Mario
that's how I
aesthetic.
felt. Like I thought
I
A Link
never
Between
really liked
Worlds
it.
was a perfect game, save for the fact
Oh,
that I
man.
didn't like its aesthetic. Which
maybe-
10 minutes into it, I stopped caring because everything else about that game is perfect.
Maybe somewhere down the line there will be an in-app purchase for older skins.
I'll
for
do
the
it.
Mario 3 skin.
Gladly.
Like
Well, that's
Mario
how
Maker
Mario
does.
Maker works. Yeah, that'd
Yeah.
be cool.
It'll be very interesting to see how Super Mario Run performs. The best-selling Mario game is what, the first one still, right? With
Has to be.
40 million copies sold.
40 million copies sold.
But a game sales is limited by the install base of the system. But like the mobile, I mean, I don't even know what the iPhone install base is and iPad. It's
There's
insane.
over 1 billion iOS devices.
Yeah, so
And
it's like what?
It's a timed exclusive for iOS. It's coming to Android next year.
Yeah,
Well, we
later.
don't have an exact date. That just later. But
yes.
I mean, it'll be next year.
Pokemon Go.
What is?
Mario.
Coming to Android. It's launching on iOS.
Really?
Only.
Yeah.
Oh, I
Yeah.
didn't realize that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
December
I-
15th for iOS?
Yep.
Yeah,
and then Android to
Weird.
follow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pokemon Go had over 100 million installs, but that was free, of course.
It's it's one of those games. Stats for mobile game sales are kind of hard to find, but even though there's way more Android devices out there, the people that use iOS devices are a little bit more plugged into their app store and spend a little bit more money. And developers repeat over and over again that even though there's fewer people on iPhone, they make more money on iPhone, just because they're more invested in that app ecosystem.
Yeah. That's probably true. All right, let's check in with the listeners.
Hey, listeners.
This is Brandon Vermillion from Atlanta, Maryland. Vermillion's a good name. It reminds me of Sword of Vermilion.
Yeah.
It says, "What's up, Scoop crew? Longtime listener, first-time writer. After watching last week's Scoop and hearing you all talk about the NES Classic / Mini, I impulsively went out and picked one up.
How?
After standing in line at Best Buy for 5 hours.
Oh, God.
All right, that's how.
I got home and loved it to death. I found it was a great way for me to experience games that I haven't played before since I am merely 18 years old.
Awesome.
That's great. That's good to hear that he is 18 and still liked playing these games. That's very encouraging. My question is, what do you think the effects will be if more mini plug-and-play consoles are made? Do you think they'll contribute to the gaming scene by bringing in new people who might not own a current-gen console? Or do you think, since I assume we'll have multiple iterations of these tiny consoles soon, that the gaming market will become oversaturated with nostalgia and quick cash grabs? If anyone knows, it's you scoopers. So these things aren't really that new. Actually, I think Nintendo's kind of late to the party with these.
I don't know why people are freaking out about the Nintendo one.
There's a Genesis one that's been available for a while. The Atari Flashback has been available for years. You can buy those little like old school Atari
ones.
Joysticks that include like Pac-Man, Galaga, Pole Position, I think. Years ago, I got my dad a plug-and-play console that was the Genesis controller, and it just had the NHL games on it, like 3 NHL games.
That's really
He's a big
clever.
hockey fan.
That's so funny. Yeah.
So this isn't that new.
I think people are making a big deal because it's the NES library, which is better than any of those libraries that you mentioned before.
Well, and
Genesis
the polish
could
and
be good.
attention.
And there is like a really nice UI interface.
The build quality of the device, it's the exact same controller and the style of
Well,
it.
it's a little bit shorter.
Well, but besides the cord,
yeah.
everything but that cord, like the device, it's got a really, really good feel to it. Like you can't discount stuff like that.
Yeah, I hope that the NES Mini or whatever it's called, Classic, does super well. I mean, I hope I can buy one before Christmas easily.
Yeah.
And I hope this does lead to a Super Nintendo Classic and maybe a PS1 Classic.
Well, I mean, think of how well like a PlayStation Classic would do, an N64.
Like this is an awesome place for nostalgia for people like us to sort of gauge interest on dormant brands, like a PS1 Classic where you have Parappa and Medieval and and Jet Moto, and you're like, do people actually still care about this? Let's figure it out.
If Crash Bandicoot's on there.
Yeah, I was talking to Damon yesterday that I hadn't paid. I mean, obviously, I've been following the NES Classic, reading the news. We talked about it on Scoop, but I didn't pay really close attention to the 30 games that were on it until we had one in the office. I was looking at the back of the box, and I was really surprised. I just kind of expected it in the back of my head. I thought like this is 20 good games and 10 filler games. But it's not. Like all 30 of those games it really is like, it's missing some stuff, but it really is like a greatest hits.
And it's not just Nintendo, it's Konami and Capcom.
That's the big
so
thing.
Impressive.
It's not just first party. They're able to get third party.
A few third parties.
And I think it is really cool. Like you have this story here that he's 18 and he's going back to games,
awesome.
That were long before he was born. And I think that's awesome too we always talk about like preservation and sort of, I don't know, having a wider knowledge of gaming history is important. I think this could be a good way to, because it's kind of a pain in the ass to go back and either buy an old console or download a bunch of virtual console games that are kind of too expensive, in my opinion. And so having a one-stop shop where it's like, hey, for $60, $70, you can sort of fully inform yourself on what the NES was like, I think is cool.
There is an element of, like Nintendo loves to continue coming up with new ways to resell you the same games. Altano has his bit about how he's bought Super Mario Brothers 10 times. And I want an NES Mini Classic. I'm not exactly sure why.
Yeah.
Like they're on, like half those games are on my Wii, and then more of them are on my DS, and more of them are on my Game Boy Advance. And it's like I would imagine that I probably have 25 of those 30 games in my house somewhere, and yet I still want this thing.
Same.
But I'm hesitant.
It's the poster. I keep telling you.
It's because of that poster. It's going to be hooked up to my TV for a while, and then it's going to end up, probably being in a closet, and then Nintendo's going to come out with the Switch or something else, and then they're going to resell you those games again. But I mean, wouldn't it be better for me to wait and just buy those games on the Switch?
Yeah, I mean, maybe, but I also think I think this would be cool, like when your daughter's old enough and you want to start showing her like some games or what you do for a living, like to have her start on this and play some of these games that are much simpler than modern games, and have her play it on a decent facsimile of the stuff we
and
played as
Taito's
kids.
in there too. Yeah. I think that there's two really good ways to experience retro games also that are not this right now, and one of those is the NES Remix series. Yep. If that's on Switch, like don't buy these games again. Like buy NES Remix. It's really cool. It's like takes these games that you're playing for the first time now and like puts achievements in them and makes them and mixes them up in crazy ways. Yeah. I really, really like that.
I also don't think, in regards to a younger generation, I definitely think Brandon is the outlier. I definitely consider this, like, I hope that I'm wrong and that younger people do discover these new games through a system like this, but I think it's very much a nostalgia play. Like, I think it's mostly for people that grew up with these games and want to experience them again.
Speaking of the nostalgia play, this next email is from George Weber from Milwaukee. And he says, love GameScoop, been watching for a while, really enjoy the show. I am very excited for the Crash Bandicoot collection. I most likely won't enjoy the games as much as I remember I did when I was younger, but I'm still very excited. My question is my millennial generation too obsessed with nostalgia? And are we setting ourselves up to tarnish the memories of these games because we think we want them remastered?
That's a big topic.
Yeah, George, you think the millennial generation is obsessed with nostalgia. What about my 80s generation?
Dude,
my entire life is about trying to crawl back into the 80s.
Every single movie, every single remake.
Every generation is obsessed with nostalgia. It's just that your nostalgia is different than our nostalgia. Like, I think my nostalgia is probably different than your nostalgia by a couple of years. So, to me, the Super Nintendo is that console.
Yeah.
That is the thing I'm trying to go back to.
Greatest console ever made.
Someone younger, like Alana, the thing is the N64 and the original Xbox is her nostalgia.
Well, I just read a great article, an obit this week. This guy ran this great record label called Norton Records, reissued the Sonics and the Pretty Things, all these very famous 60s bands. And he died this week. And he said, one of his quotes in the New York Times was, I'm not nostalgic for these records. These are records I wish I would have heard when I was a kid because they're awesome. I missed them though, and that's how I feel about some of these games. I miss these games, Like but I'm still interested in playing them. It's not because I'm nostalgic for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, nostalgia is, I do go back and forth on it. Just like philosophically, like sometimes I think it's kind of unhealthy or a waste of time, and it's just better generally just to focus forward. Like keep your eyes forward and keep looking towards the future and sort of trying to forge the path to the next thing instead of, like you said, clawing and grasping for what's come in the past just because it makes you feel good. But then I sort of swing back the other way and say, hey, look, like if you enjoy something and it makes you smile and laugh and have, feel good, like if something makes you feel good, like fuck everything else.
Yeah. It's finding warmth and comfort in a simpler time of your life, like before sort of critical thinking. Which I think is cool. I mean, we see that too. Like we put up Destroy All Humans, which was a PS2 game, like sort of a cult classic, came out for PS4 the other day, and we put up the first 20 minutes of it, and it did amazing numbers on YouTube, and all the comments were like, oh, I totally remember this game. Like, this was my game I played in elementary school or in middle school, and so like nostalgia is important, and it's weird to think that like 15 years from now, people are going to be nostalgic about like Rise. Like, games from this generation.
Well, probably not Rise.
Knack. Give me Knack.
Yeah.
And Knack HD.
It'll be uniquely Minecraft. That's all it'll be.
Minecraft, for sure.
I do think that in terms of trying to introduce, like I've seen, and for a long time I was one of these people that are like, here's what I'm going to do when I have a kid. They're going to go through one game console generation every year, starting when they're 5, and they're going to play the NES library and the SNES library. And I kind of thought I was going to do that. I've changed my mind. I kind of think we all love Star Wars. So I guess I don't want to presume. I assume that we all love Star Wars. But if our parents made us like be into what they were into, it would have been Flash Gordon.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, my dad did that to me, so I grew up loving all the movies that he loves growing up. Yeah.
But you understand, right? Yeah. Like you can't say like it's not cool to make your kids be into stuff that you were into growing up. Like they need to be into their own stuff. Like it's important that they be into things that the older generation think is stupid and not understand.
Yeah.
Like,
but I think it's also important that my dad did get me into film at a pretty young age. Like he showed me The Godfather and he showed me Seven Samurai and Casablanca. And so I'm super thankful. I think there's a healthy medium of that. Also, you're going to start your daughter on Monkey Ball, be honest.
Yeah. I mean, I'll probably, in all honesty, I will probably start her on Angry Birds.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's super easy to understand, and you can play it before you have fine motor skills, and she'll enjoy the bright colors and the sounds of being able to drag the thing back.
I think her motor skills are just fine.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, that's weird.
Anyway, this is Shane from Texas. He says, salutations all. I am a veteran gamer. Been gaming since the early 80s, but I've never played a Pokemon game. My son 9 years old, is getting into Pokemon, and I've bought him an older game before, but never really figured out what the deal was with Pokemon always releasing 2 games at the same time. Can the Scoop Crew please explain this to me so I can make an educated decision about which Pokemon game, Sun or Moon, to get my son for Christmas? Thanks and Scoop.
Yeah, Pokemon, one important thing about Pokemon is that it's about trading and collecting, right?
Yeah.
And so they are selling a game for $30, and half those games you can only trade and collect certain Pokemon, which encourages you to trade. That's the positive way to look at it. Play with friends and trade. And the negative is that it means you can't catch them all unless you trade a friend with this other game, which means they sell 2 games, or you buy a copy of the game, and then
Also,
But you would have to have
Did
two
you
like,
have two
systems to transfer to make the trade, right?
Yeah, not anymore, but it used to have to be that way.
Okay.
also
There's
buy,
a bank
buy
now.
Pokemon Sun for your sun and Pokemon Moon for your moon.
Oh,
Yeah,
That's
that's
good.
what I say.
Okay.
Also, you should probably buy your son Pokemon Sun because one of the main differences between Sun and Moon is a 12-hour sort
Yeah.
of difference.
yeah, you're just
So,
playing a day or night.
Yeah, like if you're playing Sun, you're playing it at the time of day you are currently playing it. Whereas
Yeah.
if you're playing Moon, it's
Moon is
12 hours
shifted
off.
by 12 hours.
Yeah.
That's such an interesting, like that you shifted your Animal Crossing clock. Like I only played that game in the evenings, so I never saw my town during the day. In like the 4 months I was addicted to that
Yeah.
game. It's the same with World of Warcraft, actually.
That's funny.
Oh, that's the
It's
24 hour
on a
cycle?
real-time
I didn't know that.
24-hour clock.
So it's always nighttime when you're playing?
Wait,
Did
how's
you
it
have
work
another
if-
question about
that's it.
Pokemon? Or
Just
is that
wanna
it?
know
How does
why
it
they-
work
why
if
do they
you're-
release 2
How does it
games?
work if you're playing with someone like in Europe?
It's like server time. So like some servers are on West Coast time and some are on Central time or Eastern time or whatever.
And then there's the remakes of the games, which sometimes,
With the Pokemon?
add stuff. So
Well,
there's actually more than one.
yeah, when there's
more
like-
than 2 versions.
Well, they do the 2
they
and
added
then they do the
Pikachu
third
in,
one.
in
Yeah.
the third one.
Yeah.
of
Also,
the first gen.
I think it'd be kind of cool to. I mean, I don't know if you have 2 3DSs or if you want to buy 2 copies of the game, but I think it'd be kind of cool to get into it with your son.
That's where I thought that
That's
story
true, yeah.
was going.
Oh, yeah.
Like
Yeah,
I think that'd be
that's
fun
actually a good
to
idea.
experience it for the first time. Maybe you don't like it, but maybe you do, and maybe you guys, and then you start trading stuff.
I don't understand. I feel like this is going to get me a lot of hate. I feel like Pokemon's very overrated. I think the battle system, like I'd never played a Pokemon game before, and I was excited to check it out. And I think I bought whatever the DS ones were. That was the first one I ever played.
It's not overrated.
XY?
It's not overrated to
Yeah,
this guy's 9-year-old son.
My thing is that game is so slow. Like moving is really, really
It's
slow.
really slow.
Battles are really slow. Conversations are really slow. Everything in that game took forever. And I was like,
mean-
I've never been more disappointed than.
I totally see what you're saying, but I've always thought it's for kids. So like for a 9-year-old, I think it's great.
Yeah.
I was just excited to dive into
I
like
gotta say too, like you're describing JRPGs.
I mean,
JRPGs are slow, and it's a JRPG.
The
And
battles
some
just
people
took
like the
forever.
methodical
I mean,
nature of those.
I like Pokemon more than you, but my 2 favorite Pokemon games are Go and Snap. So
Sure. Well, there you go.
there's that, and probably Puzzle League at number 3.
It's just a weird feeling to finally dive into something that a billion people love and then just feel like
one
you
thing
don't
that's
get it.
not kid-like about them is that there's an overwhelming amount of stuff in the game.
To learn.
Like if you pause the game, there's a million things. You're like breeding, washing your Pokemon. You go to this like world where there's like, all this stuff to like shop and buy that's outside the regular world. It's so overwhelming, and it's additive. They never
Yeah.
take stuff
Yep.
out. So like I don't know anything that's going on half the time I go to places in Pokemon, and I'm just like I have to go look it up in a wiki or something.
That's
Like,
what-
what am I supposed to do here?
That
And it's just like,
adding-
oh, you just get jelly beans out of it. I'm like, why do I need those? And it's like, well, jelly beans actually work to do this. And it's like, why am I doing this?
It's because every single game adds
really
on
cool
one
and
new
complicated.
system. The additive nature of sequels really shows. Like I buy FIFA once every 5 years.
Yeah.
And then there's like a million options on the main menu, and I'm like, I just want. How do I
So
play?
I-
How do I
I-
play
how do
soccer?
How do I kick the ball?
I think it's cool that it gives kids this game that may be paced differently and have cuteness, but like it is so complicated, and it gives them a sense of like I'm playing a real game, and like I'm doing this. Like it's not just a veneer of
Yeah.
a game. It's like I think Skylanders is a little simple.
Yeah.
in
Oh,
the
sure.
gameplay, or like Lego Star Wars and stuff. But this is a complicated,
Yeah.
at times difficult RPG, which is really cool that we're giving kids a giant JRPG. That's neat.
Well, speaking of Pokemon, this next email is from Ryan Hume, and he has a question about worldwide release dates. He says, love the show, always tune in. Looking to get feedback furthering on from a conversation on last week's episode. Games that release on different days in different countries, in my opinion, absolutely ruin the game, especially in the age of Twitter, Facebook. I'm a massive Pokemon fan, desperate for the game, sitting just now 2 days before the game releases in America, knowing I won't get it for another 8 days. I either have to disappear. He must not be in America. I either have to disappear off social media and IGN until I get it, or take the risk of getting the game spoiled. It makes no sense, and I think overall hurts the publisher. If a game is ready, release it worldwide the same day. Surely it's that simple.
Pokemon has been worldwide released. It's delayed for only Europe this time.
Interesting.
And I don't know why.
don't know why.
And that's usually not like that. So it's just a bad situation.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that sucks. I always feel the same way about we generally get things first,
Well,
but like Marvel movies
man.
will release
Marvel
like a week
movies
before.
always come out in the UK first.
Yeah, and then we like have our
But at
review
least-
up, and I'm like, ooh.
At least it's like only like a week or something. Like
Yeah.
Doctor Strange comes out in 2017 in Japan.
Wow.
And today there was an article on Cracked. There's like a white guy that's living in Japan temporarily, and he's like, I can't watch Doctor Strange until next year.
That's insane. Yeah.
There's very few games now that aren't global or really close to each other. I mean, Persona is the only one I can think of that's really far off right now.
They made like Final Fantasy 15's global release is kind of a big deal.
I mean, it
for that
always
series.
used to be a thing, when games came from Japan, that,
Souls.
it would be a year, like Final Fantasy VI would come out in Japan, and then a year later that game would come out in America.
Especially with digital distribution.
Yeah.
Like, why can't you you don't have to ship the game anywhere.
Yeah,
it's
like
all
maybe the
localization.
physical shipments delayed, and I
Yeah.
understand that because that's how production works. But
Yeah.
digitally just
Well,
gets me.
the companies have these relationships with these retailers, right? That they don't really want to launch digitally until it's day and date with the physical release.
All right.
No, I understand. That would be frustrating. Okay, now is the time on GameScoop when we play 20 questions.
I forgot the questions.
This is where you email us your suggestions. Email them to gamescoop@ign.com. This week's comes from Pat from Verona,
Wait, can you hold
New
that paper up again?
York.
No.
Nope. Pat from Verona, New York.
Is it Bioshock? Is it Bioshock? 'Cause there's a picture of the Bioshock behind
Is
us.
that your first question?
No.
Let the questioning begin.
Wait,
We're
where
back
is he
to
from?
Verona, New York. You think that?
Fair Verona.
I know.
Yeah.
I know what a Verona
We got this.
What would a Verona
New Yorker
like?
would.
Do you play as a human?
Stumped.
Yes.
Yes, yes, yes. After 7 seconds
after,
of pause.
yep.
Did it release after January 1st, 2000?
No.
Okay.
Same after 1990.
Yes.
Okay. So
90s game.
90s game where you play as a human?
Mm-hmm.
Where do we want to go now?
Consoles and genres.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll take consoles and genres.
Was this originally released, or do we generally think about it as being a game that appeared on the 16-bit consoles?
Yes.
That's a good one.
That is a good one.
Well done.
Is it? Was this game a Super Nintendo exclusive?
Yes.
Bah.
We did it, guys.
You're just kind of a human.
Let's just mess around for the next 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Mario's human.
I bet it's ActRaiser.
You're not a human. You're God.
Yes.
Is this a game with sequels?
No.
Ooh, it's not ActRaiser because there's an ActRaiser 2.
Super Nintendo exclusive with no sequels. Was this game made by Nintendo?
Yes.
All right, we're gonna
dang.
get this.
But it's not. I'm a little weirded out because
Because Nintendo almost has
not
primary-
Mario, not Punch
Mario
Out,
RPG.
not Zelda,
not Zelda.
It could be a Super Mario RPG.
I mean, would you consider Paper Mario? A sequel?
Uniracers.
I was thinking Uniracers. Man, I made
No,
a
you don't-
Uniracers goof
You're not a
today.
human in Uniracers?
Maybe.
What?
Or do you play as the unicycle?
Yeah, right?
Is this an RPG?
No.
That's good.
Made by Nintendo, guys.
And
really
gals.
SimCity was made by Nintendo, kind of, on the SNES.
You don't play as a human.
It has sequels.
You do. You're the mayor.
It has sequels.
Really? Yeah, there are
There are
sequels.
sequels.
Was this game single player only?
Ooh. I wrote that down.
What are you thinking?
Yes.
No, I don't. I'm just wondering.
What did this game? What games?
We already did Mario Kart in this, right?
Oh, could this be a?
But you play as a lot of people in Mario Kart.
Ooh. Do you consider yourself a human in Mario Paint?
That's a good one. You do have a hand.
And you're swatting flies.
Yeah.
There's probably a presumption. I would presume that you're a human in that game.
Yeah.
How do we narrow it down in a way that's not stupid? Or that's not very. I may not care.
Do you use a mouse to play this game?
Yes.
Hey!
You swat flies in this game?
Let's use the rest of the questions.
Did Brian Altano recreate a drawing of the Rodney King trial in this game when he was a child?
I can't answer that question.
He did when he was a child. He didn't know what the Rodney King trial was. But
Is this game Mario Paint?
Yes, it is.
I have a bunch of.
There are 11 questions.
I have like a line of questions I want to try on this where we talk about the IGN score, and it didn't work on this one because I don't think we ever scored this game.
No, I think we never went back.
Do you ever look
and-
that up when you grab these?
I don't usually. I just want to know if it's like got good reviews.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
well received.
Yeah.
Mario Paint, you guys got there a lot faster than I thought you would.
I think we're all in agreement that you play as a
Yeah,
human.
it just took me a second, but you're just you painting and making music, right?
Yeah.
There's just like a hand, right?
Yeah, that's enough of an avatar.
Yeah, I feel like it's really challenging for you to ever pick like Tetris.
Yeah. What? Maybe we have played it. Have we not done that one?
Or just a game like that, like something abstract.
We did Tetris because we were surprised it was like 85 or like
Yeah, it's
whatever.
almost everything you pick character based.
Yeah.
I guess you did the Mean Bean Machine. I remember that episode.
Oh man.
Oh, that was
Did you
difficult.
really do that?
Yeah, and it was like, who do we play as in that? Yeah.
That's whack, Damon.
That's right. That's what it was.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Don't you play as Dr. Robotnik, or that's what the fight
like,
was about? Can
yeah.
you see your character on screen? And Dr.
Yeah.
Robotnik's like dancing down in the
Yeah,
corner.
they thought but you're not. Because then we got in the discussion of like Dr. Mario. Like, who are you?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, who are you in Dr.
You're not.
Mario?
I
You're
never
Mario.
thought you were like, because you see him on the screen. I thought you were like his assistant. Yeah.
Mario is actually throwing the pills.
And then you are
Yeah.
the one that's moving the pills around, not Mario. Anyway, I don't want to reopen that
Getting
can
all
of worms.
worked up all over again.
it just comes in.
Oh yeah. Well done. Yeah, Mario Paint. That was from Pat from Verona, New York. Got there really fast.
Verona.
GameScoop is off next week. Next week is a holiday week. It's Thanksgiving here in the U.S. And I'm going to be in Spain for the holiday, so I won't be here to record GameScoop anyway. So we're going to take next week off, but GameScoop will return. This
GameScoop strikes back.
This is after the post-credit scene. GameScoop will return in just a couple weeks.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So let's do it. And then we get into the most wonderful time of the year.
Yeah.
Year-end wrap-up stuff.
We'll play 20 questions with our respective families come
Okay,
next
good.
week.
Yeah. Let me know how you do.
It's just all going to be about politics, though. It's going to be terrible.
Yeah.
No, don't. Just make it about video games and just see how your families do. That is all the scoops that we have for you this week. Thank you, Marty. Thank you, Justin. Thank you, Sam.
Soups.
Game Soup. Now you're making me hungry. Remember, you can always reach us at the email address gamescoop@ign.com. My name is Damon. This is IGN Game Scoop, and we're out.